welcome to Scott Industries, and today, Blazehackman's Masterclass number 3. I got a project called Painted State. I worked on it for many years. I wrote, produced it, funded it. We did a bunch of test scenes a while back, and I've been editing that as well. So, started out as a feature project, and then it's kind of switched to, after being on Netflix like half the rest of the world, seeing how there's a lot more joy and a lot more longevity in making a project that could last for years and series. How many episodes of Walking Dead are there? 60 now? There's a lot of room for a lot of creativity, a lot more people, more employment, more fun than there is, say, in the 2-hour format and then of a feature film. And then if that's successful, we've seen people like Bryan Cranston. I think something like Breaking Bad really helped him make a quantum leap into film. But previously there was like TV actors and film actors, and now that those lines are blurring, because the stars really now are the people who are they're the affordable ones. They seem more sincere when you pay $6 for a subscription for a month, as opposed to $30 and $10 for an ice cream. So I think people are really buying to the sincerity, or seeming sincerity, and cost efficiency and quality that they're getting now from the network television. What do you call subscriber-based television? And we're contributing to it as well, because we're creating the product by putting the money into it. So that's what this has switched to. Anyway, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to play you, I was actually going to go through another scene, but then I saw the trailer sitting there and I thought, yeah, I did the trailer, and the trailer gives you more of an overview. For all its flaws and good points and flaws, there's 2 versions of this trailer. I cut it a while back, but I mean, I can see faults in it now. Good things in it, faults in it, but there's 2 versions. One was because I had a fast song and a slow song, and I made 2 versions in case I had copyright issues. I just didn't want to get to the point where suddenly a song was nuked by YouTube and then you couldn't hear the audio, and then I'd cut to the beat of that song and then I had issues. So I did 2 versions. So I'll just play both and then we'll have a bit of a chat about it. So here's version 1.
I know you feel that special buzz when you put it on. Feel it urging you to layer down thicker every time. It's exploiting our personalities. It's making us thrive in ways that are not human. But we're not in control. And we gotta get off it. I want you to hear me share. Come and see me share. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking.
Okie dokie, and so what we'll do now is we'll go to the same trailer. It's going to be version 2, and it's actually got, I thought it was sitting there. It's actually got, here we go, more beats per minute, and it's got more cuts. Here we go.
I know you feel that special buzz when you put it on. Feel it urging you to layer down thicker every time. It's exploiting our personalities. It's making us thrive in ways that are not human. But we're not in control. And we gotta get off it. I want you to hear me share. Come and see me share. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking.
Yay. Okay, so there you go. There's the two shots. So what I'll do now is I think I'll just go back and I don't know, I'm two minds about it. I think that I prefer version 2. Sorry, that's a lie. I prefer version 1. I prefer the slow version. I prefer the version that's more psychological. Version the faster version is good, and I like that music, and I was cutting to it for a long time. But I think that I hate this term. It's got a call to action in it. It's got some people, they see a clowns in the desert and they think Mad Max, and they demand action. And I've made this point before, but I think in where we're going now, people are happy to sit in Better Call Saul. Or now Walking Dead, the zombies, the whole last series with Negan, it was all drama. It was almost like Days of Our Lives, and you didn't see that many zombies. You didn't see that much zombie killing. You didn't see that much action because people are engaged in the characters. So that's why I like the slower version. I'm not saying the faster version is wrong, but maybe when you're pitching and trying to sell something, you need more action. And what I'll do is now kind of reviewing it. I'm going to go through the fast version because it's got more cuts. It's got more content. Both are good and both work. And I was cutting with the fast version for a long time. It's a track by Sebastian Tellier, French guy, who's really kind of weird and out there. And I just particularly like the retro sound of that track. So what we'll do is we'll go back here, and I'm just going to explain the shots and where I was with each shot. The trailer was just meant as obviously an overview of the film or the project, and I had this monologue running through it. And I think that the monologue actually came out of a scene that I did when I was in this abandoned space in Broken Hill. And I'd written a bit of a speech which was related to another scene, and I just started improvising that scene, and then it just fell out of me, this whole monologue, and we used a bit of that in this, but then we actually transferred that and used it as a whole trailer about the seductive power of the paint and when you feel it on, and how it's changing people, the humanity. It's very internal, even though this guy's saying on the speaker, that's what you'd call it a juxtaposition, a contradiction, really. But I like the contradictions. I like the fact that it is a psychological piece, although you'd think that the clowns are demanding you to perform. But I must stop referencing it like that, because it's not, well, I don't have to. You don't have to either. You don't have to do anything. But to me, it's just not, it's about masks, and it's less about the Ronald McDonald variety or the clown you want at the children's fair. So let's have a look at this first scene here. Okay, so I tried to put a bit of narrative in there. This is a scene where the character Sage is testing the paint. So you're introduced to the paint. You've got this laboratory setting and grade, and that's why I made the hands and the gloves particularly grade. The light was pretty harsh. As with a lot of these scenes, there's a lot of heads, and some people have complained about it, and says, there's just a bunch of portraity heads. But I wanted the people's eyes. I wanted to get close into what they were going through. So, and here, a lot of times I shot really in close. I wasn't scared to shoot. Really, I want to see what that person is going through. And with a good performer, they just don't have to do much. They have to internalize it. You can see that they're not physically acting, but they're acting mentally. You see what's going on in their mind, and I think that's kind of fascinating. And so if we put on this paint that's going to deeply affect you or change you or readjust your DNA before your eyes, I want to see that. And I think that Anthony Hunt, the actor here, is just great. He's just giving me so much in this scene. And this is about 10 o'clock at night in Broken Hill. So slowly he puts on that, and I think we reference that clip later.
Feel that special buzz.
Here's the paint again. So you're seeing paint and paint, building this narrative, making it strong. Never quite happy. This is shot in Marrickville. Not I'm happy with the shot. God, Brian Moses did an amazing job. I just wasn't happy with some of the color grading. And I'm not an expert color grader, but I just never really got the look I wanted, and it was more to do with the filters in Premiere Pro, and I just couldn't find. I could have done it in After Effects, but that would have just taken me days. I needed to get this out and cut it together. And so this is the look that I kind of like the most, and it focuses on the paint. So you can see the paint dripping there.
Put it on.
There's my character. You might notice the paint's a different color here. This is green paint. It was white before. Maybe slight continuity error there. And then the paint's dripping down the hands. I know this is a bit stop-starty, but once again, you can see the kind of trauma in this character X. And then I'm putting it on. The idea of putting the paint on the face. The idea of the trauma of the situation. And this is a lovely design that Amy Conway, my makeup artist, she just did this as a stencil, and then I'm kind of finishing it off here, but it looks like I've done it expertly myself. And I pumped up the contrast. Tried to get the white happening of the makeup, just to pop, I guess. And him putting on the makeup in the morning. Looking at the paint again. Another shot of that back in Broken Hill. That's actually, that thing is a like teeth bleaching from a dentist. It's a tube of teeth bleach. So that's been removed and replaced with paint. And once again, this is the grade. He's kind of being skeptical of it. In this scene, he's questioning the paint. And so the question marks are starting to form around what it's actually doing to people. But I do like the fact that it's bright yellow. It looks kind of dangerous. You've got this Cold War industrial environment and the look that I've got going as well.
Exploiting our personalities.
And, there's my friend Sedina, who actually, speaking of Cold War, she came in and replaced another character, and I rewrote it for her. She was available, and I changed the name, and then we just eventually came up with this Cold War, Cold Whore pun. I've said this many times. This is Anthony Hunt in Marrickville. So we're jumping around different shots, and this is when he and I are having a bit of a chat. I think this is an amazing shot. I think the grade came up really well, and was just filters in Final Cut Pro 10. I cut it in Final Cut 10 and Premiere Pro, and a lot of times I found the filters in 10. And I'm not saying you should stop there. I'm just saying for efficiency, pretty much just looked at, I just whacked the look on it, adjusted a bit, and go, yeah, that's the look I'm looking for. Susie Lololio, she did the wardrobe, the plastic, and then I bought my pool filter from my kid's pool. That's what Anthony's wearing at the moment. And the design on his head, it took a while to get that design, but it just looks great. There's me. Okay, so bleeding for real in this scene. I hit my head leaping through a rack of inflatable dolls about an hour earlier, and so the blood's leaking for real there. So I really will go into the scene in the next installment, but I was really happy with the way it looked, and the band-aids just made it off as well. I bleed easily. Okay, so there's that shot there, and if we can go back, no, gone back too far. That shot there of my back is more makeup by Amy Conway, and I just wanted a few scars and a bit of slashing, and she's just a phenomenal technician. Is he going to play that from there? It's a quick shot, but this grade looked amazing too. It just looks, I really hate it when blood doesn't look legitimate on screen. I remember there was a film, well, there was Saving Private Ryan, and that was Bleach Bypass. Looked fantastic. And then Mel Gibson came up with We Were Soldiers. I don't think he directed that, but I think that everyone, and then was it Wind Talkers? Nicolas Cage, were all these films that came up post Private Ryan, and I think they tried to create the same horror, but they never got it right. And a lot of it's in the grade. The blood, it just looked like fake blood. In Saving Private Ryan, you felt like you were in a real war. So I was really particular about getting this look right. And for the few shots that you see this, it's one of those things. What I do like is there's not too many shots of this, so you're kind of teasing the audience. But I think that's a great little teaser shot. This is a shot of Anthony at the end of the film having a conflict with Mr. Whatever, who's the corporate genius behind the whole paint thing, living in a bunker somewhere under the annihilated earth. And Anthony here said, look into my eyes, see how traumatized I am. And he did this thing with his fingers, and I thought I think it was improv, but it was good. And it just looked great, and I actually used this eye In the artwork for Painted State, there's a big cloud, and I'm standing before it out there in the Broken Hill, and then I'm staring at Anthony's eye, and that was shot in Marrickville. So continuing on. Now, speaking of, we'll come back to that in a second. Sian Hammond here. Her character called Alice Malice. Sian, because she had a little baby at the time, so her availability was pretty narrow. So she came up for the night. Then I hurt myself an hour before. And I was bleeding during this scene, and she was strangling me, and blood was pouring over the bench that we were on. But we got her made up, and we put this scar on her left-hand side, and that gave the character a bit of a vulnerability. This is the one character that wants her old life back, and I've actually stolen her identity. I stole her wallet, and she thinks I've somehow dissolved her whole identity because she wants to go back to the way things are. So I had just had this whole thing about Lana Del Rey. When I was writing the script, I always had Lana Del Rey and a lot of her songs in my head, and then this Jackie Onassis thing as well, and that's what I had for Alice Malice. I thought it would look great, and then Amy Conway came up with the makeup and the scar, and then Susie Lolio, she came up with the wardrobe, and it just all came together, and we only had half an hour to shoot this, and then Sian put it together with the performance, and it looked amazing. It's one of my favorite shots, and I think she just does an incredible job. There's Seds doing her incredible job late at night at Broken Hill, once again, high contrast, and there was a lot of yellow lights, a lot of yellow tiles, so I had no choice but to make the creamy makeup pop. There's a lot of white makeup in this, and I've had people say on social media, oh, it's all about white people. I just think that's just ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous proposition from someone who hasn't read the script or met anyone in the cast. Okay, so this shot here, this is actually Craig Anderson's idea. He said, my character takes on this really high level potent paint to take down the bad guys, and because you're putting on this paint, you're forgetting who you are and what you're doing. You go into rage. It's like a Hulk kind of rage. And so Craig said, why don't you have him carve in his mission onto his arm so people can remind him, look at your arm, this is what you've got to do. And so kill Nemesis is what the mission was. So we just got a bunch of, after the surgery, we got the blood on there, Amy painted it out, and then we put the plastic on, and I think that with the color grade came out fantastic as well. So it all comes down, I guess the point of making this trailer is, I think I was trying to make a bit of a narrative, make it interesting. I'm leaping around a bit, try and give hints of what's going on, and also, does it look correct? Do I like the way it looked in the end? And a lot of these shots, without these color grades, no, I would not like them. But this looks good. Anthony eating Spam. I actually feel sick looking at this because we ate so much Spam during this scene. And him cutting that up with the knife. When an actor makes an offer in a scene, you've got to run with it. You've got to take it. And so he had the knife, and he was cutting the Spam up into disgusting slabs and then shoving it down his face. And post-apocalyptic living would involve a lot of Spam and canned food and making you feel slightly nauseous. So this is spot on. Okay. Slightly Hammer horror. I did this, I speed ramped this shot and had him turning around with the mask on, and he's about 6'7", so it looked very intimidating. So I was very happy with this look as well. Another shot of it. This shot here, I love Nick Verhoeven. I think she's awesome, but this is probably one of my least favorite shots in the cut, and it's not because of her, because she actually makes it more interesting than it is. But sometimes I found with my DOP, he did a great job, especially in Broken Hill. Brian was fantastic, but Dave and I just had a different aesthetic. So he didn't understand what I was trying to do with the shots, or didn't think it was good or relevant. And he never really challenged me on it. But then I found the few times that I would walk away and go and do something else, and he would do his interpretation. It wasn't my interpretation. It's not the way I'd shoot. So, and I'm not saying that I'm better or worse than him. I'm saying that I'm different, and so then I see the shot and I go, no, that's not the way I do it. And it's very interesting when people are shooting second unit, or what if someone's shooting second unit for Ridley Scott? You really have to get someone who's going to match your aesthetic. And if you look at the Blade Runner 2049, the latest trailer, man, that is spot on. And the director who did that, what's the movie with the aliens that come down and sit in that pod? It came out recently. Arrivals? Arrivers? Something like that. I should know that. The director of that film was used for the new Blade Runner, and they're aesthetically on the same page as Ridley Scott, and so that's really important. But it's just interesting when someone's not, and I just didn't like this. In my head, I actually had her against the wall, and we were slowly dolling past her, and she was just sitting there. But it's just too flat and uninteresting. But that was the best portion of it. So this worked though. We're on the same page here. Out in the desert, looking traumatized. Got the blue contacts on. Don't know if that works. It was a really windy day. We were limited for time. There I am, out in the desert. Once again, I was getting Nick and Sedina to stand up really slowly and stare down the camera and make this really atmospheric and haunting. And Dave was, well, why would you go so slow? Why would you do that? And that's in my head. That's what I see. That's what seems right. And sometimes you can't even explain it. But people have completely different ideas. Like, why would you frame it like that? But I think it worked great, and we really cranked up the frame rate there. Then this is me again. Those shots were hard to do because we had the camera on the back of a car and they were really unsteady, so I just had to grab the portions that were nice and clean. The Zeds looking great in the machinery shop. This is Josh and I in our desert fight. I've pumped up the contrast here, and I think I was trying to get away from looking completely like Mad Max in the desert. That's one of the great fears. And I haven't seen Fury Road yet. I still want to see it, but I don't want to see it until this is made, until this is done. So to make this stick out, I actually made it more, I actually did head down the path of making it more contrasty, more fluorescent. Hopefully not as bad as Batman and Robin. Okay. And then I went back then. Went back to a different net. But I think I'm really happy with this shot. Bought that helmet at the Army Disposal in Sydney. And then this is where my character's just getting psychic messages. And a lot of these shots came up well. So we've been there again. Okay, this is shot about 10 o'clock at night. I had another mate of mine who's a DOP that hated the lighting in this. We only had like 1 or 2 lights. You've got to remember the test scenes. I actually think the scene works really well. I think sometimes there's a perfection in the imperfection. And I've mentioned it before, there's a David Lynch film where he basically just uses a torch, lights the whole scene with a torch, like some crew member holding the torch on the actors' faces, and you can see the globe and the outline of the globe hitting their bodies. But if it works and it's correct, why not do it? Here we are, Barrack in Marrickville. Nick Kerno looking amazing. Barry Tucker, Broken Hill. There's me slamming through the wall of dolls that I injured myself on, and then Sean here used a different grade. So it's the same scene, but a different grade. This is more Goldilocks. But I like both. I think both work. And you're giving yourself options. Hang on, I'm going to sneeze. Ready? Excuse me. Okay. So we really are leaping around the shots here. I'm just trying to pick if anything sticks out in particular. Okay, this shot here, it's not in the slow version, but this is that original improv shot where I was in the studio, the big space at Broken Hill there. Those studios have actually been sold to a pair of locals, and it's sold really cheaply. So hopefully we can get back up there and negotiate with them and get this thing done. And the problem here was, once again, I had various grades that I was looking at, and the light was all natural light. I really just said, you know what? And I probably a little bit naive that the sun would. I didn't expect it to be freezing and cold and almost hailing in Broken Hill, and lots of cloud cover and high winds. And the high winds were causing sound issues, and they were blowing the clouds across the sun, and so then the light would come and go, and then we had a few moments of good light, and then it would just all fade. But I tested a lot of different looks for this shot, and this is the best one to me. So there's Mr. Whatever. I really like using the bad TV filter. I think it's awesome, and it kind of speaks of the fact that everyone's being watched by some kind of redundant technology that exists in the future. So the story's not over. There is an element in the thing that, and that's part two, that people are being watched. That there's a whole civilization that's existed under the earth that has been watching this whole experiment of these people and the paint and how it's affecting them. And so just leaping around here, more shots. You can see that the Nicono is just awesome, and I just keep cutting back to him because we're coming back to this idea of him at the bookending the thing, and this is where sequentially where it ends, the confrontation with Mr. Whatever. So here's Nick and I running through the desert, and I had this comic like Judge Dredd font fading up, and God, I spent hours on this. I think because there was another version where I wanted an alpha channel on it, and it was more bad TV plus alpha channel, and I spent hours making versions and versions of this, which only I know and appreciate, and everyone else thinks, it looks alright. And then the big sort of fade out at the end. So there you go. That's kind of a quick overview of my decisions and my aesthetic on Painted State, the trailer, and hopefully the message is it's about the paint, how it affects people, and the conflicts that arise in this world, and how they're going to change it, and the forces that control it at the end. And it explains, what I find interesting. So I do find it interesting to be in that environment, to wear the makeup, to have a lot of fun, and explore these crazy themes. There's more to come. So the next installment, I'll break down the dinner scene, actually where I hurt myself and what's going on between myself and Anthony Hunt in that scene. And I'll give you an update on where I'm going to take this thing. All right, thanks for joining in.